You want to dive into the stories and myths behind Professor Scienza's new series, but Italian isn't your thing. No problem. You find all the conversation translated in English in the new Mama Jumbo Shrimp book, an Italian wine pilgrimage with Professor Attilio Scienza. Now available in English on Amazon.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. And remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hi everyone, this is Beatrice welcoming you to the Italian Wine Clubhouse Ambassadors Corner, one of the top-ranked shows on Italian Wine Podcast. Here, our ambassadors get the mic to interview their favorite producers with total freedom. And if you miss it live, no worries, it's recorded and dropped later on the Italian Wine Podcast. Today's guest host is Alberto Rivera. Alberto is a wine educator, consultant, and communicator based in Chihuahua, Mexico. With a background in international law, sustainability, and international studies, he brings a multidisciplinary perspective to the world of wine. He is a certified Italian wine ambassador and Langhe wine ambassador and is currently completing the WSET diploma. Working closely with Italian restaurants in northern Mexico, he specialized in the curation of wine programs that showcase Italy's viticultural diversity while promoting fine and luxury Italian wines in collaboration with distribution and import partners. His professional work has taken him across several Italian wine regions, deepening his expertise and connection to the country's diverse terroirs. Today he's gonna interview Giacomo Bartolommei of Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino. So Alberto, Giacomo, how you doing, guys?
Doing great, Bea. Thank you.
Doing really great. Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
So are you ready, Alberto, for our 3 ritual questions?
Yes, Bea.
How did you discover the first time the wines of Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino?
I tasted for the first time a Rosso di Montalcino in 2015 while living in Italy and visiting the city of Siena. Once I came back to Mexico, I began my wine studies and understood the importance of Brunello di Montalcino as one of the greatest red wines of Italy. Then, during a VIA seminar sponsored by the Consorzio Brunello del Vino di Montalcino, I realized how the Sangiovese truly shines, showing elegance, beautiful aromatic compounds, and a structure that allows the wine to age well over time.
Perfect. So tell us, why did you select Giacomo as your featured guest?
I had the pleasure of meeting Giacomo Bartolommei in 2024 when he was serving as vice president of the Consorzio during Benvenuto Brunello. I was honestly very happy for him when I heard that he was elected president, because he represents what in politics we often call a generational change. He is the youngest president in the history of the Consorzio and also among the youngest in Italy. Even though he has been in this role for less than a year, I believe his work is already shaping what I will call a new image of greatness for the appellation. He understands the importance of keeping long-time Brunello drinkers engaged, but at the same time, he is opening the door to new customers. I find his vision very interesting about Rosso di Montalcino not only as a second-level wine, but as an important expression of that territory. Also, his approach to communication, making wine more accessible and easier to understand for the younger generation, is something that I think is very important for the future of Montalcino. For me, this shows that younger generation are stepping into key decision-making roles, even in one of the most iconic and traditional wine regions of Italy. And they are doing this while respecting the culture and history, but also bringing fresh ideas to a world that is constantly evolving.
What are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview?
First of all, we will get to know Giacomo on a more personal level and better understand the person behind the title of President of the Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino. Then, we will talk about the identity of Montalcino and how it's evolving, particularly in relation to new customers and the current market, which require a fresh and more effective communication strategy to bring one of Italy's greatest wines closer to a wider audience. And then lastly, we will also explore how the Consorcio is addressing key topics such as wine tourism and global warming, and how this impact both producers and consumers. We will touch on important discussions that have been on the table for some time, including the evolving image of now one of the greatest wines of Tuscany, which is Rosso di Montalcino, and then the possibility or not of the zoning of the appellation.
That sounds like a really nice plan for me. So it's time for me to mute myself. Now I'm turning over the floor to you, Alberto. Have a nice interview, guys.
Thank you, Bea. And thank you, Giacomo, for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting me again.
Before we begin our conversation, I would like to introduce today's guest to our listeners. Giacomo Bartolommei is the president of the Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino, as well as the winemaker and expert manager at Caprilli Winery. He has been working at his family winery since 2016 after completing his studies at the Ricasoli Agricultural Institute in Siena, and he holds a degree in economics and commerce from the University of Siena. So, Giacomo, you come from a three-generation family of winemakers. How has growing up in a wine family shaped the way you represent Montalcino, both in Italy and abroad? Do you ever feel the responsibility of representing not only your family and your wines, but also such a historical and globally recognized denomination as Brunello di Montalcino?
So, growing up in a family of winemakers means having wine in your DNA. So, not as a profession, but a way of seeing the world. Caprilli was founded earlier in 1965, and I'm the third generation representing the family. That has given me a deep sense of belonging to this territory that goes well beyond any institutional role. The responsibility of representing a denomination like the Brunello is immense, and I feel it every day actually. But I experience it as a motivation and not a burden. It is precisely that responsibility that pushed me to accept the candidacy.
Well, thank you, Giacomo, for your response. You became vice president at a very young age, and your experience as an expert manager and enologist has clearly shaped your path. What were the key steps in your journey that reached this position, and what advice would you give to the new generation entering the wine world, especially in your area in Montalcino?
Actually, I started working in the cellar right after finishing the high school in 2011, and I was starting taking care both production and sales from the very beginning. At the same time, I continued my studies, graduating in economics and commerce at the University of Siena, as you mentioned, but as well starting to be as an enologist. Actually, with the 2016 harvest, I started officially to be the enologist of my winery, Caprilli, and I joined the family estate at full time at that time. And I also maintained the role of export manager, and this was a dual track that gave me a complete vision, both in the vineyard and cellar in the market. I joined the Consorzio board of directors in 2019 and served as vice president for the past 6 years. Then I advise the people, the guys who wanted to do this same role, to don't rush in and specialize in just one area. The broader your perspective, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes when we are young, we usually try to rush and we sometimes make some mistakes. And you have some truth in what you said in doing things slowly and just try to become better every day. So, Giacomo, as one of the youngest leaders in the Italian wine industry and with a team that represent a new generation, did you see a different future for Brunello di Montalcino and Rosso di Montalcino compared to previous generations? And if so, what would you like to change or evolve the most?
Well, I think a generational change in Montalcino estate has been underway for years. Actually, perhaps the Consorzio just needed a little more time to get there. The renewal brings always a significant advantage. It opens everyone's minds, and I ran because I believed that some adjustments were needed. The goal is to bring Montalcino back into the conversation, fully on its own terms. Our wines form a current quality pyramid, actually, but they must travel on two distinct and independent tracks. For too long, the Rosso di Montalcino is seen as the baby Brunello, and that does not do justice to it. So there were two wines with their own precise personalities, addressing different markets and different age groups. Our job is actually to valorize both what they are for what they are and not in relation to one another.
Yeah, of course. Actually, the Montalcino area holds the Brunello, the Rosso, San Antimo, and the Moscatello. It's so interesting to see how the consortium and the area brings together all of this under all different minds. So the next question is, the appellations under the consortium compete on a global stage with other iconic wine regions. Even within Italy, there are strong comparison with Chianti and Chianti Classico, which also work with Sangiovese. What do you think sets Montalcino apart today, and how can it maintain its competitive edge?
Actually, the starting point is already an important observation. Chianti and Chianti Classico do work with Sangiovese, that is true, but they are not as a single variety, as you all may know. And we have, as we always done, actually. So that's really also a big difference. And in terms of identity and expression and stylistic consistency, also over the time. Montalcino is also a territory unlike any other, one single municipality, one defined perimeter, a community of producers sharing the same roots. This territorial unity translates into widespread quality that has grown enormously in recent years. This is not a matter of competition or pricing, it is just a confirmation that we are heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Giacomo, for that. And then my next question is more about the area. As you said, that Montalcino is a municipality. And there has been increasing discussion in Italy about zoning and the introduction of MGAs, cruise, and more. Yet Montalcino has taken a more cautious approach, considering the clear difference in soils, elevation, and exposures across the territory. Do you believe the appellation is ready for this level of classification? Or do you think that introducing MGAs could risk making Brunello di Montalcino more complex for consumers and more challenging to manage in terms of quality and producers' balance? From your role, where do you personally stand on this debate?
This is really a subject that the consortium follows with close attention and a strong sense of responsibility. It is worth remembering one often overlooked element. Montalcino is a single territory, so as I said before, one single municipality. That compactness is an identity asset that must not be diluted. Our disciplinary has always given producers full freedom to highlight individual plots through the vineyard designation, a tool that already exists, already used, that allows the character of a specific vineyard to be communicated without disrupting the architecture of the appellation. The differences between north and south across different elevation and soil compositions are real, and producers have already expressed them. Before introducing additional layers of classification, we must ask ourselves what will they add genuine value for the consumer or simply adding complexity. A brand built over decades must be protected with the same care one gives cultivating a vineyard.
Well, thank you, Giacomo. And as you said, the disciplinare di produzione del Brunello di Montalcino sets this single vineyards production. So we have been more wines coming from single vineyards. Do you see this as a growing trend among producers, or is it a response to the lack of terminals, formal zoning, or more a stylistic choice of the wineries or the winemaker?
I think it's more a stylistic choice of the producers that wanted to express every single vineyard as they wanted to express their single plot much more respect to just having the Brunello Annata appellation. So it's just of this thing, not because there is a lack of MGAs, I will believe.
Thank you. And then we are going to speak about climate change now. And this topic is becoming one of the most important challenges for wine regions today. What actions is the consortium taking to support producers and help mitigate its impact? We often hear about solutions such as planting vineyards at higher altitudes or solutions such as exploring new areas. But what about clonal selection and the importance of preserving the genetic heritage of Sangiovese that has been cultivated in Montalcino for generations?
So climate change is a reality, actually. We have been observing concretely in recent years. And as a consortium, we have chosen to face with scientific tools, actually. So in particular, the Brunello Forma project, which has allowed us to systematically analyze the stylistic evolution of our wines in relation to climate condition, and the map of the denomination, which charts the detail, the variability of the soils, altitudes, exposures across the territory. And these tools help us to understand where and how to intervene in the vineyards, first of all, to preserve balance and drinkability, avoiding over-ripening. On clonal selection, the work is equally fundamental. The genetic heritage of Sangiovese cultivated in Montalcino over generation is a precious and a repeatable resource. Identifying and preserving the local biotypes best suited to the new climate condition is one of the most important investments that we can make for the denomination future. And as well, we need to work much more with the universities and research and develop more about that for the Sangiovese to come over in the years still better.
Thank you. And yes, as you said, Brunello Forma is one of the most interesting projects of the Consorzio. Actually, I was in Montalcino when the Consorzio presented the new vintage in 2024. And it was not only a scientific approach, but also a marketing, how you leave behind the stars rating. And then you came with at least 3 words that defined the new vintage. And it was really like interesting to see and learn about it. And then about climate change also, how is the consortium working together with the producers to manage the impact of rising temperatures and heat waves, which can accelerate ripening, increase sugar levels, and reduce acidity, ultimately affecting in the aging potential of the wines in the region? And beyond the vineyard, how do you see higher alcohol levels influencing the communication of Brunello to modern consumers who are increasingly mindful to alcohol intake and often looking for more balanced and fresh wine styles?
Well, we actually intervening with some researchers, with some university, with some also other people who are researching about the climate change and climate, and also the viticulture changing methods. We have studied a lot during the past years, especially also on the problems that we get from the powdery mildews, downy mildews who are affected, for example, the 2023 harvest. So we have been working alongside with the university to see which is the best solution. And as I said, with Brunello Forma, we have started a point. We have now very big network system of 60 weather stations placed in our land. And we are actually doing a great job of information and see the data of when a disease is just getting around the corner, and we are more precise with all the data with those weather stations. Also, it's not ended the job. We are just applied with CREA, which is an Italian Institute of Research, which is part of the Agriculture Minister, where we are studying more about the phenological phases of our vineyards in order to the relations with the temperatures and all what we just see during the year. And what we already have, we are just doing also a very great linking between the two things.
Thank you, Giacomo. And as you said about what you said about the meteorological station is very interesting too. And I would like to bring this topic that is also very trending, that is the use of new technologies is growing in the wine industry, especially in areas like AI and precision viticulture. Do you see technology playing a bigger role in Montalcino in the future?
Well, technology is already transforming the wine sector. I believe, just as it's transforming many other industries. So I think the key point, in my view, is not whether we use it or no, but how we can integrate in a way that remains coherent with our identity. As a consortium, our role is not to impose innovation, but to observe, understand, and support producers, helping them navigate these changes through dialogue, research, and shared knowledge, from precision viticulture to communication tools like AI. These innovations can be valuable if they help us make better decisions and communicate more effectively without losing the authenticity that defines Montalcino.
Thank you, Giacomo. I understand that the United States is the leading market for Brunello di Montalcino. However, following the recent tariff challenges affecting wine export, has the consortium considered further diversification into other markets? For example, we are seeing a strong growth in regions such as Asia, Brazil, or even Mexico, especially in the segment of premium and luxury wines. How important are these emerging markets in the future strategy of the consortium?
Before the threat of Trump tariffs, we had a strong wave of export. A second boost came after the tariff pause and another surge in sales in waves. The data actually are encouraging for us, but the future, as we can see also from the very last 20 days, remains uncertain. We also need to watch developments like Mercosur, which are redrawing international trade balances actually, and also with the India, with which EU has just settled an agreement. But of course, United States remain our leading market, which is absorbing over 30% of exportations, followed by Canada. Those markets are really loyal to us and they do not abandon ship even in difficult times. At the same time, we are looking with growing interest in emerging markets such as the Asia, as I was mentioning, also India and China too. Brazil, Mexico, where demand for premium wines is rising strongly. For us, the diversification is not a plan B, it's a strategic necessity. So, by the way, we are really looking to those new markets to settle a new strategy of exportations.
Thank you, Giacomo. And wine consumption is declining in several traditional markets, especially among younger generation. How is the consortium working to remain relevant and attract new audiences?
The purchasing power has contracted. That is clear, probably to everybody of us. And there is a broader issue affecting the wine sector as a whole. We need promotional activities aimed at the younger audiences to foster responsible consumption, wine has progressively distanced itself from consumer through complex and inaccessible narratives. Sometimes we need to change the language to tell the story of Montalcino in a more direct and more contemporary way, but not because we need to simplify the message, like to do basic things, but we needed to try to find a very different way that could be easier to understand to everybody.
And what is the strategy of the Consorzio to communicate the identity of the region to younger generations? What role does Rosso di Montalcino play in this?
The starting point, as I was saying you before, is not to simply or to simplify the message, but to make it more meaningful and more relevant. For many years, communication around wine has been strongly trade oriented. That remains fundamental. But today we have also feel the need to rebuild a more direct relationship with consumers, which we were not doing in the past. This is why we are working on a medium-term communication strategy structured on different levels, continuing to support the trade while also developing a language that is more accessible, more contemporary, and closer to how people live and experience wine today. In this context, actually, the Rosso di Montalcino plays a very important role. It is often first emotional connection with our territory, a wine that fits naturally into everyday moments without losing identity or quality. And is also probably the wine that for the younger generation could be the first way of entrance into the Montalcino world. So it will be the entrance to also to the future for the Brunello di Montalcino.
Yeah, of course. Actually, almost all wine people start drinking Rosso and then evolve their taste to Brunello. And I would like to come back to something that I mentioned earlier about Rosso di Montalcino. Today is becoming one of the most interesting wines in Tuscany, with its own identity gaining attention from both new consumers and wine experts who see it as a pure expression of Sangiovese. Do you think this evolution in style is mainly a response to market demand, where consumers are looking for something more serious and unique, or is it driven by the vision of the winemakers who want to express their creativity and showcase their work in a different way?
The quality of the Rosso Montalcino has been improving considerably over recent years. And the edition of Red Montalcino that we did last June proved it. I would say it's a fortunate convergence of both things. There is a growing demand for wine with a strong identity, quality at more accessible price points. At the same time, producers, often the younger generation, have chosen to invest creativity and energy in the Rosso, not just in the Brunello. The result, I think, it's a wine that today is truly has its own voice.
Yeah, of course, it's no longer Baby Brunello, it's Rosso di Montalcino. It has his own identity and image.
Yeah, it's a job that we have started some years ago, and actually came to a conclusion with the 24 when we actually made the new extension of the Rosso di Montalcino surfaces, just of planted vineyards and not. No more new plantings have been made, but we just passed from some IGT Sangiovese to the Rosso di Montalcino, 3 Moretta, an increase, and to give to the Rosso di Montalcino the quality and the quantity to stay on the market, because actually we were passing from 3 million bottles to at least raising till 5 million bottles in total, which will be the production of the 2025 harvest. So we will considerably have been making a progress on this, but also the quality, as I said before, has been increasing a lot, especially with some estates owned and guided from younger guys. Have been changing the idea of this kind of wine.
Yes, and then I will bring a new topic to the conversation, which is that wine tourism. So, over-tourism is becoming a global challenge in every country. The Val d'Orcia is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. What actions is the Consorzio taking to support wine tourism while preserving the authenticity of the territory?
So the wine tourism is a multiplier of wealth, one that benefits not only wine producers but the entire economy of Montalcino territory for a direct and indirect impact of over 150 million euros. Actually, we don't have the data of the 25 ready to read, but I still have the data of 24. And the overnight stays in 24 came close to the record of 233,000 presences in the municipality, 6.3% more than the previous year and nearly 30% above pre-COVID levels. So it's a really huge increase of presences, but the challenge is to manage this growth in a sustainable way, preserving the authenticity of the territory and its last value, which is an integral part of Montalcino experience. And also, we have just made the new Pacchetto Vino, where it's demanded to the Consorzi to lead the game on the ennotourism. So we are trying to make a plan also for this in order to assist our wineries into this new role that the Consortium has been given from the European community.
Thank you, Giacomo. As you said, this whole wine tourism idea, it's experience economy that not only involves wineries, but also restaurants, institutions, and local communities. How is the consortium developing strategies with government institutions and wineries to bring together the identity of the territory of Montalcino from food, wine, art, and traditions? I was surprised to see the museum in Il Chiostro dell'Arte Sacro. So, how are you, the consortium, working together to show to the foreign visitors the whole idea of Montalcino?
Well, the work with the institutional part of Montalcino, which is mainly the municipality, but also working with producers, with all also the restaurants and bars in Montalcino, is always important to make a strategic promotion of our territory. With the municipality, we still always work on making right plans for the events and making the things to get better, also to experience this part of Montalcino outside of the wineries, because sometimes the problem is that people come in Montalcino, they just visit the winery, and sometimes they don't visit also the small town. So we are working more on making some towards of the town in order to get it more consistency on this, and also on the restaurants we are slightly working with them in order to get more seasonal menus and more something that can sort it out much better with the offers of our wines. So it must be very integrated things in those two things. It's not a thing that will last a small time to get better, but we are really working on making a very serious big plan on this. And also we are working more for the formation, so the education of all the people that are working in or around the wine region. So starting from the experiences tours of the wineries to the people who are serving in the restaurants. So we wanted to make a very big plan on the educational to assist and to have a much better conversational relationships with the customers that are coming in our territory.
Thank you, Giacomo. And speaking about education, the Consortium has been one of the most active supporters of the Vinitaly International Academy, and I have noticed a strong attention on wine education during events like Benvenuto Brunello in Montalcino, London, the United States, and other promotional activities like Accademia Brunello. Why do you believe education is such an important pillar for understanding and promoting the wine regions? And in your opinion, why should other consortia follow the example of Montalcino in this approach?
Education is fundamental. I was saying before that education is fundamental for the people who are working for us, but it's fundamental also for the people who are drinking our wine. And so the Brunello Montalcino is a wine that requires understanding to be fully appreciated. And the bottle alone is not enough. You need context, history, territory, investing in training for sommelier buyers and journalists and consumers means building a credible ambassadors all around the world. And I believe that also the other consultancies should follow this example because education is the most enduring investment that a denomination can really make for be better known overseas.
Thank you, Giacomo. And after Vinitaly, what other promotional events should our listeners keep on their radar?
Well, we have just returned from an intensive tour in the United States early by the end of February to the early March. Then London, which was just taking place by the end of this month of March. And then we are going after Vinitaly. So there's Vinitaly in the midway of our program. After Italy, we have a very important appointment, a roadshow in China, which will hit Shanghai, Wuhan, Guangzhou, and Beijing. And so for us, it's a concrete signal of growing interest in the Chinese market, and because it's showing towards the great wines of Italy. Spring, during the first week of May, we will host an incoming event on the territory for operators from several European countries, because nothing tells the story of a wine better than the place that produces it. So we usually host several incomes that also in October, when we have the Accademia Brunello, we will do so an Accademia Brunello with Canadian people who are coming in our territory for our appointment dedicated to education training. And then we will have two other special Benvenuto Brunello later this year, which will be held in October in Montreal and Toronto. So to further strengthen our presence in Canada, as I said also before.
Wow, it's so interesting to see the deployment of work of the consortium in China, in Canada, and especially in Italy, within Montalcino. And to close our conversation, as president of the Consorzio del Vino Brunello di Montalcino, what legacy would you like to leave behind?
Well, my message is really simple of my legacy. I would like to leave a consortium that is cohesive and principled first and foremost. And above all, a consortium that has managed to change the way it's planned. Not looking just 1 year ahead, but with a long-term vision, capable of planning over broad horizons, of making strategic choices that produce results over time. Wine requires passion in the vineyard, in the cellar, in the market. So the consortium must reflect the same mindset, I would believe.
Well, thank you, Giacomo. Vi auguro un grande lavoro a te e al consorzio.
Grazie mille. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alberto and Giacomo. That was such a nice interview. Thank you so much. So to wrap things up, for those who are interested to participate, just send us a DM through our Instagram or mail our Italian Wine Podcast producers at info@italianwinepodcast.com. Thank you so much again, Alberto and Giacomo, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. And this is a wrap from Italian Wine Podcast. Ciao, ciao!
Thank you, ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through italianwinepodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.